Good afternoon, everyone. It's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. I am coming to you with a story about Jenelle Eason. Now, she's been making the rounds with her husband, David Eason, while they're in New York promoting her new overpriced brow kit. And she and David sat down with People Now and talked about a lot of things. They have been dropping tidbits of this interview over the past few days. And earlier today, they dropped a little nugget where Jenelle actually admits that MTV never actually fired her from the show. So if you remember, back in May, when everything blew up with Nugget, there was a lot of questions on whether or not she was actually fired. Now, Jenelle says that despite what has been portrayed in the media, she actually still has an open contract with the Viacom and MTV. And at this point, she says production won't talk to her. Nobody at MTV is really talking to her. She says she's been able to talk to one other old producer of her show, but otherwise hasn't had any communication with the show, and seemed to allude to the fact that there could be the possibility of her returning to the show. Now, here's actually what she said. So she said, my relationship with MTV right now, we just left it on a civil note, and apparently I'm still in an open contract. I hear that I'm not fired, so I'm confused because I only talked to one of my old producers, but no one else will speak to me, so I don't know. Things have been very hush-hush, but I would have to. So when they asked her whether or not she would go back, she said, but I would have to. I've been working with them for so long, just the editing is not good. It's just never been good. Explaining that she feels like only negative aspects of her life are portrayed on screen for ratings. MTV, in their statement on this was in the spring of 2019, they told Us Magazine and multiple outlets, I just pulled this one from Us Magazine, and they said MTV ended its relationship with David Eason over a year ago in February 2018 and has not filmed any new episodes of Teen Mom 2 with him since. Additionally, we have stopped filming with Jenelle Eason as of April 6th, 2019, and have no plans to cover her story in the upcoming season. So MTV basically says their relationship with Jenelle is over. However, they didn't explicitly say that they fired her. They just said that they didn't plan to feature her in the upcoming season. I'm not sure if this was a way for them to skate by and appease the sponsors and the people that are advertising on their show, because when everything went down with David Eason, big companies were pulling their sponsorship and pulling their advertising dollars from the show, refusing to advertise on MTV. They didn't want any part of it, no connection. And I always thought it was interesting that they never actually said she was fired. They just said that they didn't plan to use her footage. Now, the episode last night, so Teen Mom 2 actually debuted last night, the show that she was on. And Jade Klein, who was part of Teen Moms Young and Pregnant, I believe, a show that lasted only one season, she was picked up as a replacement for Jenelle. So theoretically, if they're bringing someone like Jade in, it's pretty fair to say that Jenelle is out and Jenelle is done. They're no longer filming with her. But they haven't necessarily said it's over for good. And this has kind of been the same situation with Farrah, where they ended things with Farrah, but then there's always been this sort of rumbling that Farrah could possibly come back at some point. There was a lot of speculation that when Bristol Palin left the show after only one season, that she might be asked to come back. That never happened. Now, in this case, I highly doubt MTV is going to bring Jenelle back, especially considering the fact that only 2 days ago on People Now, they admitted, actually only yesterday, they admitted to what happened to Nugget, and it's not good. I can't see any advertisers or sponsors wanting anything to do with this. But it is interesting because an open-ended contract means there's no definitive start date, no end date, and therefore if they didn't close the contract and it's still open, there could be room for negotiation down the line. I don't know what steps would have to be taken to be remedied in order for that to happen, and I don't know if either party wants to do that. I would think since nobody at MTV will talk to her, that's a good indication that MTV literally wants nothing to do with her. Interesting, right? A lot of people in my comments have often said, Jenelle was never fired, Jenelle was never fired. And I will say to you, you're right, she never was fired. However, she doesn't technically have like a payment. She's not being featured, so therefore she's not really working. She just has a contract in, I guess, legal sense, but it's basically meaning nothing. What the contract could still have clauses in it in terms of a hold clause. So sometimes a reality show contract will have a hold clause, meaning that if someone was on a reality TV show and then they leave the show, at that point they have a certain amount of time where they can no longer be featured on other shows. You'll remember that this is what happened to Farrah when she left and wanted to appear on another show on VH1, and there was some wrangling between MTV and VH1 in regards to whether or not she could be on the show. So that could be a component of it, although it hasn't prevented other MTV stars like Amber Portwood from starring in Marriage Boot Camp on a competing network of WeTV. So, also, there could be also aspects of this where she has a contract with MTV that says she can't speak poorly of them or can't speak badly of them. That is or criticize them. Now, this was actually brought up by the Ashley when she talked to MTV Production yesterday about Andrew Glennon being ambushed by producers, which isn't exactly how I heard the story, but it's okay. Now, when I spoke to Andrew, he did say that they're not supposed to criticize and they can't criticize the show. But it's very questionable about whether or not speaking out and advocating for yourself is actually direct criticism of something. And there's a lot of question on whether or not if someone's being truthful, is that criticism? I don't know. Many of the women on Teen Mom 2, including Kale Lowry, have talked in length about their displeasure with the editing on the show, discussing about how Kale talked on one of her Coffee and Convos about how producers got her son Isaac so riled up and got him to cry so that they could film him crying on TV. Bristol Palin left because she felt like all they did was focus on her divorce. Jenelle was talking with people about how, they would film all day long. And for instance, she referenced a time where they took one of the kids to get a haircut. She and her mom went there. Everything was great. It was a really super cute experience. But the only thing that actually made it onto the show were the 2 minutes of that entire day where they happened to talk about Nathan. Now, with reality TV shows, there's most often than not clauses in their contracts that producers can do anything they want to over dramatize and depict you, the cast member, in any way that they see fit. So if they want to make that person the villain, they can make that person the villain. If they only want to show negative stuff that's dramatic, they can only do that. They can show that. And because of that clause, cast members are not allowed to sue them for defamation for showing them or depicting them in an unflattering light. The more I've learned about these contracts, the more I'm like, holy crap, these networks really do have these people by the balls, and these people really have no, even though it's reality, it's not reality because they have no control of the story that the production decides to put out. And it's not surprising, if you think of it from a viewer's perspective, that they would leave out the happy times, because happy times in the world of drama TV doesn't sell. And in the world of reporting and in journalism, if it bleeds, it leads. That's always what they say. People love to watch drama. People love to watch meltdowns. People love to watch fights. People really don't tune in to see people gooing and getting all excited about a kid's birthday. They tune in, especially with Jenelle, they tuned in to watch her get into fights with her mother, yell at her baby daddies, have her toxic, terrible relationships. And sure, there was probably very positive aspects of her life that weren't shown. They made it so that was what we knew about her. And everyone has two sides, but in Jenelle's case, her one side is pretty dirty and has a lot of drama. So I think it's pretty safe to say that even though she's claiming she wasn't fired, that she won't be back to the show. I've not heard at all that she would ever be back to the show. But it begs the question of why why did MTV cut Jenelle off for what happened with her dog, but they still have not cut Amber off when she has already been arrested one time for domestic violence and now has a second arrest and is on and will be facing 3 felonies in her upcoming trial. Janelle was never convicted of anything. Now, I realize some of the filming aspects made it impossible for them to get footage, but in the same breath, I've heard through the rumor mill, through multiple sources, that Amber Portwood is not the easiest person to film with, cancels on different aspects of her filming, or makes production come in later because she doesn't want to get up. So this whole idea that Amber is like well-to-do and production loves her is not necessarily the case of what I've heard, and that's not from Andrew, that's just from other people and other sources connected to the show. So it is sort of questionable about why they haven't done this. Again, begging the question of, do they realize if they get rid of Amber, the show is over? It just seems very contradictory to continue to have these shows go on with original cast members not on anymore. And if, like, in case of Jade was never part of the 16 and Pregnant franchise, period. So bringing her on is totally weird. She was brought on years after all of this started. It just seems weird that they keep trying to recycle the show. Is this the only show that makes them money? I can't figure it out. Is MTV as a network on life support and trying to keep things alive? Most of the drama on these shows happens off the air anyway. So let me know what your thoughts are. Do you believe Jenelle that she's in an open contract? Do you think they'll ever take her back? Would you even watch the show if she came back? I'm not even going to lie. I didn't watch the debut of Teen Mom 2 and don't have a lot of plans of watching the season. I will definitely bring you news about the castmates off the show, but as far as the show goes, I'm done supporting MTV. Bye, guys.